Hello there, welcome back to another stream, third one in a row. Today, we're not doing art, we're going to do some reading. Do you remember the reading streams? We're going to keep doing those. This time, I'm reading a book I don't think I've read on stream. I think I started reading this book somewhere midway through when I quit. To be honest, I've been reading through it very slowly, so I'm only halfway through. It's a bit too long to read in one stream, so bit of a misleading title to say reading Ovid's Metamorphoses on stream. We're reading part of Ovid's Metamorphoses on stream. Hello, Elkalong. I haven't seen you in a while. Well, actually, I have. I sometimes tune into your streams and listen for a bit. You've been remarkably consistent all these years. I hope you keep being consistent. And I think perhaps you have even found a way to program while streaming. That's always a terrible thing. trying to do anything that requires focus while streaming, it's absolutely impossible. One moment, my camera is a little it's not focused absolutely right. We're gonna break the immersion. One moment, where is it? Settings, camera, calibrate. There we go. There we go. Ignore the curtain behind the curtain. There we go. Let's see. I haven't done this in a while, so I've totally forgotten how it all goes. We've got our hand cam here. No light. I'll show you why. The light, it's too bright. It's too bright. I had this figured out last time, but I haven't got it figured out anymore. So we're going to go without the lighting, and hopefully it's sort of bright enough. I may have to move this camera in a little bit more, so we're got it all right. No, I can go further. This camera is remarkably close to the page. Let's figure it out. There we go. I think there's a few people I know who do reading streams, and I think if you're going to do a reading stream, you should really get a hand cam. It makes such a difference. Such a difference. Also, where have I put it? I had a pen. I had a pen somewhere. I've lost it. There it is. Now this pen thing, pointer. You can point to where you're reading, which also has more visual interest. But let's have, before we do that, let's sort of have a quick flick through the book. Oh, it's going to be hard to turn the pages. They bump up against the camera. Well, at least we don't have to do that 3 or 4 times for the thing. Ooh, where's my bookmark actually? My bookmark, which is a piece of printer paper cut. There we go. So this here is Ovid's Metamorphoses. It's not a very nice copy. Does it have the price on it? I'm going to zoom out a bit further. Is that a price tag? No. No price tag. Is it on the back? I probably paid maybe £1 for this or something. Not very much. But do we have a? This is a Ryu one. What it looks like. He's okay. And what this is a book by a guy called Ovid. I think it's Ovidius something. Let's see if we can get his proper name. No, they're not going to give us his proper name. How very English. No, his name is something Ovidius, some Roman name, and he was a Roman poet during the time of Augustus, the first Roman emperor. I think. Wait, I hope I'm not mixing this up with the other guy, Virgil. Oh, I can find out. Huh? Let's see. 43 BC. I think that's I think that's the time of Augustus. Yes, Augustus expelled him. You can't read this. I'm a little too zoomed out. But as far as I know, the story of this book is, as the name suggests, this is about metamorphoses, transformations, where every story in this features some kind of transformation, usually by the gods, where they transform some horrendous person into a bird or something. They do that quite a lot. It's very strange mythology. Actually, I suppose it's not very strange mythology. It explains where a lot of birds and other animals come from. One of them, I think a recent one I was reading in this, was the story of a girl called Arachne, who, as you can probably guess, transforms into a spider. As she was she was weaving cloth. She was weaving cloth, and she was very good at weaving cloth. So much so that she challenged the gods to it. I believe she challenges Athena to a contest of weaving cloth, to which actually she wins. The god admits that her cloth was better, but the god was jealous of this, and so punishes her by turning her into a spider. And it's all very horrific for her and her family. And that's the story of where we get spiders from, or arachnids, as I suppose they would have been called back then. And there's a lot of Greek stories are like this. They're very much like that. And it goes through in chronological order from, I believe, the beginning of the universe. Let's have a look at the contents page. Yes, chaos transformed into the ordered universe from the beginning of the universe, and it goes throughout, all the sort of early mythological times. It goes. I assume it's going to go through the Trojan War. I haven't got to there yet. I think I'm just near the start of. And then I believe it gets straight to the coming to Rome. The transformation of Julius Caesar into a star. It goes right up until the present day. Yes, the present day. Right up until Augustus. I'm curious to see that last part, because the story of the divine Julius Caesar it's so obviously nonsense. It's you can maybe believe the story of the creation of the universe and the earth and stuff there. That's the kind of mythology where it's so long ago we'll never know. But the story of Julius Caesar transforming into a star, that's a bit more dubious. That takes place in the modern day, relatively speaking. It's all, but it is said that when Julius Caesar died, either when he died or when there was a funeral, sometime around that time, people saw a shooting star or maybe a comet or something that went past them. I believe they said it lasted a day or two. And so, as far as they're concerned, Julius Caesar has become a god. So they built a nice temple of him, and they worshipped him as the deified Julius Caesar. The mound, the ruin of his shrine, still exists today in the centre of the ruins of the Roman Forum. And people, I assume in Italy, I assume Italians, still lay flowers at his shrine, which is quite charming. We don't actually know what the temple looks like exactly, other than the foundations, which we can tell how many columns there were and get an idea of how tall they were based on the order. But the specific details of them are a bit misty. We have a coin which has a drawing of it, which features a star on the pediment on the top of it. It's a very crude drawing, but that is all we've got to go on, and so we assume that his temple indeed had a nice little star, which I think is a very cool design. Hello, Slushy! Welcome. We're reading today. We're reading Ovid's Metamorphoses. Not the Kafka one. It's not Kafkaesque. Maybe it is Kafkaesque. Some of these are really quite horrific. I think transforming into a spider and then your family being horrified by it. Actually, no, I think their whole family is transformed into a spider. Maybe, but maybe it is indeed Kafkaesque. I'm sure Ace will know more about it. But we are halfway through it. And I haven't read this in a week or two, so I've actually somewhat forgotten where I am. Let me zoom back in and have a look. We're at the chapter says Minos threatens war. I see Theseus is still alive, so we're still in quite old times. Where's that pen I had? I had that pen. Where's it gone? There it is. There we go. I do wish the lighting was a bit brighter. I am actually going to go and open the curtains just a little bit. 1 moment. I want to bring in a little bit more light. That's not doing much. That's doing a bit more. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. I think that'll do it. Try and get back in my seat. You can't see it, but I found this table on the side of the road. It's like one of those hospital bed tables that goes over the bedside. Very convenient. It's on wheels, and I can move it about. I can adjust the angle of it and the height of it. And so I'm using it for this. It's very good. I usually use it for drawing now. I have my tablet on it. Very nice. Found it for free. I assume an old person died or something. Oops, we're a bit of an angle. Let's have a go. We won't read this part because this is where the paragraph starts. But let's have a go. Well, I will read it. We've got Medea. Let's see. Medea, guilty sword drips with the blood of her sons. So Medea has just killed her sons. And this is interesting. So the story of Medea is that she was a sorceress, sort of like a witch. I forget where she came from. The Greeks just call it some barbarian place, or somewhere. And the hero Theseus finds her on his quest to find the Golden Fleece. That's the whole that whole story. Or was it Jason? No, wait. Was it no? Yes, it was Jason. Sorry. I always mix these two up. It's Jason, not Theseus. I always mix these two up. Frankly, there's not much to divide them. They're both heroes. Jason and the Argonauts. They go searching for the Golden Fleece. I forget why he's even searching for that. Just things you do 5,000 years ago, whatever. And Medea helps him acquire it. However, in doing so, she betrays her own people. Her people were guarding the Golden Fleece, but she falls in love with Jason, and helps him to get it. So she has to flee her homeland. I think her father or her brother dies by her actions pretty directly. But she is in love with Jason, and they get married. So it's a very classic tale. However, it doesn't turn out well for Medea. You see, Jason's not a very good guy, and immediately after he gets back, he goes and marries someone else. He marries a princess because he wants to become the king, and he has to have this sort of royal blood and all this sort of stuff. He has to be part of the royals, and Medea is just some sort of barbarian witch, no good. So even by today's standards, this is a horrible thing to do. And so Medea, being this powerful sorceress, she finds a way to get back on Jason. And in the version I'm most familiar with is I think a play by Euripides. I think it's Euripides. Euripides Medea. It's either Euripides, Aeschylus, or Sophocles. Frankly, I mix the three up all the time. I read them in chronological order, not by author. I think it's Euripides. Euripides always does these sort of more gloomy plays. But in that play, what Medea does is she kills her own children, who are Jason's children. And she does this to deprive him of everything he has. And then she leaves as well. And the gods approve of this by giving her a flying chariot to escape on. And I don't think we see what happens to Medea after this. However, in this story, Ovid's story here, not a Greek story, but a Roman story by Ovid, the story is a little bit different. I've forgotten how it's different now, because I read it like a week ago, and it's been a busy week. Let's see if we can figure out. Let's see. Medea's guilty sword drips with the blood of her sons. After such wicked vengeance, their mother fled from Jason's armed wrath. So that part's the same. Born of her by her dragons. This is her chariot, her flying chariot. It's said that dragons were carrying it. Very interesting. There's a nice piece of pottery you can find that has that on there. Sprung from there, she entered the city of Athens. Here we go. We see what happens to Medea after she fled. And I don't know this. Pallas. She enters the city of Athens. I think she was in Thebes before. Who once saw Finney. I can't read this too. I need to zoom in a bit more. I'm reading from the screen, since if I can read it, you can read it. Always working it out. We're figuring it out. I had this down to a science last time. Who'd been the most honourable of women, and aged Periphas flying side by side, and Alcyone too. Polypemon. I'm knocking the mic, that's annoying. Sorry about that. Is that Polypemon? Or is it Polypemon? Not sure. His granddaughter, soaring aloft on strange new wings. The King Aegeus. Welcome, Medea. The only thing he ever did that deserved censure. Well, okay, Ovid, giving your opinion, not a very biased writer here. Camera's still wonky. One moment, not happy about that. Actually, could I? One moment, we're fiddling with stuff. I want to bend this pod up so my hand doesn't knock it. I want it up. That's a bit better. I'll have to fiddle with this at some point. Now, if I remember, I think in Euripides' play, I think Aegeus, he comes to Thebes, or travelling to Thebes, and he says that that Medea can come to Athens for free. He will allow her into the city, and so this gives her the a place to go after she commits this terrible crime of killing her children. Anyway, I think we're now done with that. Presently, Theseus, who by his valiant deeds had been establishing peace and order throughout the isthmus, with its 2 seas, arrived in Athens. He was Aegeus' son, but the king did not know this. In order to destroy him, Medea mixed a draught of aconite, which she had brought with her long ago from the shores of Scythia. Ah, that's it. She's a Scythian. Those are the guys with the funny hats. Not those funny hats, the other funny hats, the ones that are sort of like sleeping caps that point upwards. This herb is said to have come from the teeth of Cerberus, the Echidnian dog. For there is a cave in Scythia with a shadowy entrance, through which the road slopes down to the underworld. It was by this route that Hercules, the hero of Tyrannus, dragged Cerberus up, after he had bound him fast with chains of adamant. The dog struggled, twisting its head away from the daylight and the shining sun. Mad with rage, it filled the air with its triple barking, sprinkled the green fields with flecks of white foam. These flecks are thought to have taken root, and, finding nourishment in the rich and fertile soil, acquired harmful properties. Since they flourish on hard rock, the country folk call them aconites, rock flowers. Aegeus himself, thanks to Medea's wiles, offered this poison to his own son, imagining him to be an enemy. Theseus, suspecting nothing, had already taken the cup in his hand. When his father recognised his family crest on the ivory hilt of the hero's sword and dashed the guilty goblet from his lips, but Medea escaped death by shrouding herself in clouds, which she summoned by her spells. So it's so anime. It's so anime. Oh, I can't go any further. One moment. I've got a white background here. It's just a piece of paper because I want to block. Oh, it's off screen. Maybe I don't need to block it. I thought it'd look neat, but maybe I don't need it. Aegeus, though rejoicing in his son's safety, was none the less dismayed that a crime so dreadful had been so narrowly averted. He lit fires on the altars and plied the gods with gifts. Oxen were led up, wreathed with garlands, and the sacrificial axe struck down upon their sturdy necks. That day is famous as the most glorious that ever dawned for the Athenians, the leaders of the state, and the common people united in feasting and merriment. And as wine made them eloquent, they said, O mighty Theseus, you are the wonder of Marathon, for having slain the Cretan bull. Thanks to you and your valour, the farmers till Crimean hills, without fear of the wild boar. Oh, till, as in, to do the farming thing. Till the farmers tilled Crimean fields, without fear of the wild boar. Epidaurus saw Vulcan's son brought down by your hands. In spite of the club he carried, the banks of Cephisus saw cruel. I hate it. Forgive me. I always hate it when a word is split in half, especially when it's not a common word. Even when it's a common word, I'd hate it. Terrible habit. I wish they wouldn't do it. Saw crew Procrustes slain, and Ceres town. Oops. And Ceres town, Ulysses, beheld you see I'm rusty. Sinis, notorious for the well, a guy called Sinis is rather sinister. Sinis, notorious for the evil use he made of his mighty strength, could bend trees with his hands, and used to draw down pines till their tops touched the ground, so that, when released, they tore his victims limb for limb. It's I love this story, and scattered them far and wide. That's a funny story. I'll tell it here because it's been short here. So this guy here, I guess it's called Sinis. I thought he had a different name, but he's a highwayman of some kind, and he hangs around trees, and he pulls down the trunks of trees, and like a slingshot or something, and then he gets people. He either ties people to them, or he gets people to like hold onto him, and then he launches the tree trunk, and they go flying, and then they fall to their death. He just does this. It's just a thing he does. You know, you can just do things. The ancient world. This isn't even ancient Greece. This is ancient. This is mythological times. I guess it is ancient Greece. They've apparently got Athens, but well, this is before the Trojan War. The Trojan War was like Mycenaean times, and if you see the ruins of those, they're almost like cavemen. And after the Trojan War, there's a Greek Dark Age which lasts for like 1,000 years until the Greece as we know it, the ancient Greece as we know it today appears. So this is very old times, and frankly, this is even before that. This is even before that. But funny story. Now, how did he perish? Yet he perished at your hands. I think they're speaking of Theseus. The road to Alcapho, the city of Megara, now lies open and safe for all. Yeah, see, he was a highwayman. Since you dealt with the robber, Sciron. Sciron? And that's another guy. Forgive me, I'm not paying attention. To whose scattered bones both earth and sea refused a tomb. For long they were tossed from place to place, till finally men say they hardened into rocky crags that still bear Sciron's name. And this is another common thing in mythology. There'll be some place, some rocky outcrop, or some kind of landscape geological feature, and they'll have a name for it. And then there'll be a story about how it used to be a man or something. There's a funny story, which I don't know if it's true, maybe it's true, but in the anime, Ruri Rocks, the rock anime, Introductions to Geology, they have a mountain which is sort of called like it's like the Sapphire Dragon or something in Japanese, and they find actually there were sapphire deposits there, and that's what the dragon was. Neat stuff. Mythology always does this kind of stuff. It's very charming. If we were to reckon up your years and your achievements, the tale of your exploits would far outweigh your count of years. On your behalf, bravest of heroes, we as a people offer up our prayers and drink our toasts to you. The palace rings with applause of the nation, and with the prayers of his admirers, nowhere in the city was there any room for sadness. But it is all too true that no pleasure is unalloyed. that's a cool phrase. Unalloyed. That's I should use that. Some trouble, some trouble ever eludes it. Some trouble ever intrudes upon your happiness. So the joy Aegeus felt at his son's return was tempted with anxiety, for Minos of Crete was making preparations for war. This king, ooh, is this story before or after Icarus? Minos of Crete. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. My timeline's messed up there. Daedalus and Icarus. They're sort of, they're the ones. Daedalus was craftsman. He was imprisoned in by, I think, either King Minos, or yeah, I think he was imprisoned by Minos. So maybe this is around this time. Who knows? Was making preparations for war. This king had a strong army, a strong fleet, but stronger than ever was his rage at the fate of his son, Androgeus. It was his death that Minos was seeking to avenge by a war that was fully justified. First of all, however, he scoured the seas with his swift ships, wherein lay his chief strength, gathering troops to be his allies in the conflicts. He gained the support of Anaphe and Astypalaea, winning the former by promises and the latter by force. The low-lying island of Mykonos joined him, and Chimelos, with its chalky soil, Cyrus, where the wild thyme grows, and the level plains of Seriphus, Paris, with its marble quarries, and the land which Thracian Arne wickedly betrayed. After this, the girl received the gold she greedily demanded. She was changed into a bird, the black-footed, black-winged jackdaw. Even as a bird, she still loves gold. I assume there you go. See, I told you. Stories about people transforming into birds as explanation of where those birds come from and why they have the habits they do. I don't know what a jackdaw is, but apparently it loves gold. Now, I must remember, I must drink lots of water when reading. For some reason, even though I'm just speaking, it's very thirsty work. I think it's unnatural speaking. Now, am I on the right mic? Yeah, I am. Just make sure, because I've got. At this point, I have 3 microphones plugged in, 2 cameras, and an actual mic. Where was we? On the other. Oh, I've skipped 2 pages. It's over. It's actually over. On the other hand, Olearis and Diademe, Tenos and Andros, Gyrus and Peparifus, where the shining olive grows in abundance, refused to help the Cretan ships. From there, Minos made for Onepia, which lay on his left. This was Aeacus's kingdom. It had been called Onepia in the old days, but Aeacus himself called it Aegina, after his mother. A crowd rushed down to meet Minos, eager to welcome so famous a hero. Telamon, hey, it's Telamon, Roblox gamers representing. Telamon ran to greet him, accompanied by his younger brother Peleus. We've got Peleus. Is that the Peleus? The father of the son of Peleus? Getting very close to the Iliad here. And by Phocus, the young. I think is Agamemnon Peleus' son, or is it Achilles? I forget. One of them, I think, is the son of Peleus. And by Phocus, the youngest of the 3 princes. Even Aeacus himself came out, though he moved slowly under the burden of his years. He inquired of Minos what brought him to the land. Then the ruler of 100 cities reminded thus of his grief for his son, sighed, and answered these words: I seek your assistance in a war which I am undertaking for the sake of my son. I would have your men form part of my army and fight in a just cause. I ask you to help me give repose to one who is in his tomb. But Aeacus, grandson of Asopius, replied, Your requests are made in vain. My city cannot do as you ask, for no land is more closely allied to that of Kekrops than this land of mine. So binding are the treaties that unite us." Gloomily, Minos took his departure. "Your treaties will cost you dear," he said, but he deemed it better to threaten war than to fight, and thereby diminished his own strength too soon. The Cretan fleet was still visible from Onepia's walls, when a ship from Athens came speeding in under full sail. It entered the friendly harbour, bringing Cephalus, and with him messages from his native land, though it was long since the young sons of Aeacus had seen Cephalus. They recognised him, grasped his right hand, and led him to their father's house. The hero still retained some traces of his former handsomeness, and drew all men's eyes to him as he came forward, carrying a bunch of the olive tree that is native to his country. On his right hand and on his left walked two ambassadors, younger than himself, Clytus and Butes, the sons of Pallas. Pallas Athena, or someone else called Pallas. Also, I'm curious if this is the origin of the olive branch as a gesture of peace. We'll find out. When the conventional words of greeting had been exchanged, Cephalus delivered the message to the Athenian people, asking for assistance and reminding his hosts of the treaty rights which their ancestors had established. He added that Minos was aiming at the sovereignty of the whole of Greece. When the ambassador had put forward the plea with which he had been entrusted, giving it greater weight by the eloquence of his appeal, Aeacus replied, his left hand resting on the hilt of his sceptre, "Men of Athens, do not ask my help, but take it. There is no question that you may count all of the forces of this island yours, as well as everything which the present state of my fortunes can provide. There is no lack of military strength here. I have soldiers in plenty, both for my own defence and to meet the enemy. Thanks be to the gods, my affairs are in a prosperous state, and give me no reason to refuse you." "So may it ever be," cried Cephalus. "May your city increase in numbers as times go on. Indeed, it gave me great pleasure, on my arrival, to see so many young people, all of an age and all so handsome, coming out to meet me. Yet I miss many of those who I saw before, when I was welcomed into your city on a previous occasion." One moment, actually. I'm going to increase the size of my own OBS profile so I can see the pages a little bit easier. I have terrible eyesight, you see. Well, not too terrible, but the screen is at least half a metre away. It's far enough away that I can't see it very easily. Aeacus groaned, and there was sadness in his voice as he answered, "Though better fortune followed, we had a wretched time of it. At the start, I only wished that I could give you an account of the one without the other, but as it is, I shall tell you the whole story, in the order in which it happened. Not to waste your time with unnecessary details, those men whom you remember and looked for in vain are now in their graves, mere bones and ashes, and how great a part of my kingdom perished with them. Cruel Juno visited her wrath upon our land, hating it because it had been named after her rival, and a dreadful plague fell upon my people. At first, we believed this to be an ordinary epidemic, and while we were ignorant of the baleful origin of our disaster, fought it by means of medical skill, but the pestilence was too much for us. Our science was defeated and collapsed. At first, the sky, dark and heavy, pressed down upon the earth, shutting in beneath its clouds a sultry heat which sapped all the energy. 4 times the moon had brought together the points of her horns and to form her disk's full circle. 4 times she waned, her orb dwindling away, and all this time the south wind blew with hot and deadly blasts. It is common knowledge that even the lakes and springs became infected. Thousands of serpents crawled over our neglected fields and polluted rivers with their poisons. the violence of the disease and the suddenness with which it struck were first realized when the dogs and birds, sheep and oxen and wild creatures began to die. The wretched farmers watched in dismay as their sturdy oxen collapsed at their work and sank to the ground in the mists of ploughing. Interesting here. This is obviously a sort of another recurring sort of motif in old texts. You'll probably think of the Pharaoh's plagues in the Book of Exodus. And it seems here we have very much a similar thing. Even still, it is a punishment from a god. I wonder if now, of course, there were many diseases and terrible things that happened sometimes at the same time that probably destroyed entire cities. And people would wonder, well, how did they get destroyed? They say, well, there was disease, there was war, there was pestilence, there was all these things, all that happened at once. It overwhelmed the whole city and killed the city. Why would such a thing happen? Surely the gods must be angry. What other explanation is there? Bad luck? Come on now. The fleecy sheep gave vent to sickly bleatings. Their wool fell out of its own accord, and their bodies wasted away, even worse, wasted away. Horses, once full of spirit, famous for their performance on the dusty racecourse, disgraced their previous victories. Past triumphs forgotten, they stood groaning in their stables, waiting for an ignominious death. The wild boar forgot his fury, and the hind no longer fled away, relying on her swiftness for safety. Bears ceased to attack the herds, which were no weaker than themselves. Lassitude laid hold upon them all. Through the woods, in the fields, along the roads lay decaying corpses. A foul stench filled the air. Strange to relate, the dogs did not touch these bodies, nor did grey wolves or greedy vultures. They were left to rot and fall apart. Hold on now. What do you think makes bodies fall apart and rot? Insects and stuff do that. So they're touching it? Come on now, Greeks, don't you know what bacteria is? I don't know, that's a bad joke. Polluting the atmosphere with their smells and spreading infection far and wide. The disaster became worse still when the plague spread to the unhappy farmers themselves and gained the upper hand within the walls of our great city. First of all, the inner organs of the victim became burning hot. A flushed skin and panting breath were symptoms of internal fever. We've figured out the metamorphosis of this section. The tongue was rough and swollen. Dry lips gaped open to catch breaths of the warm air, as men gaspingly tried to gulp in an atmosphere heavy with pollution. The sick could not endure their beds, or any kind of covering, but lay face downwards on the hard ground, and even so, their bodies found no coolness from the earth, but rather the earth became fervid from their bodies. No one could check the disease. It broke out fiercely among the doctors themselves, and the medical skill only served to harm its own practitioners. The more closely and faithfully a man attended the sick, the sooner he met his death. Moreover, as the hopes of being cured left them, and men saw that the sickness must end in death, they abandoned themselves to their desires, and paid no attention to what was good for them, since nothing was. In fact, for their own good. Oh, that was one sentence. I'm going to read it again. Abandoned themselves to their own desires, and paid no attention to what was good for them, since nothing was, in fact, for their good. Everywhere, with no regard for decency, they attached themselves to springs or rivers or deep wells, suffering from a thirst that was quenched only when life was gone. Many of them were too weak to rise again, and died in the very waters. Even so, men still drank from those very streams. Other poor wretches grew so tired of lying on their hated sickbeds that they leapt out from them, or, lacking the strength to stand, rolled themselves onto the floor, and one and all fled from their homes. Each thought his own house fatal to him, and because the real source of the trouble was unknown, blamed his cramped quarters for his illness. This is so dreary. I suppose it's particularly dreary because we all live in living memory of a plague in our modern day. Something a few generations have. Men who were only half conscious could be seen wandering about the streets, as long as they had strength to stand. Others lay on the ground, weeping, rolling their eyes upwards in one last effort. They stretched their arms towards the stars in the lowering sky and breathed out their lives there, wherever death had overtaken them. Now, sorry, I keep knocking this mic. It's on like it's quite springy. Need you ask what my feelings were then? Surely the natural reaction was a hatred of life, and a desire to share my people's fate. Wherever I turned my eyes, bodies lay strewn on the ground like overripe apples that fall from the trees when the boughs are shaken, or like acorns beneath a storm-tossed oak. You see that temple opposite, built on the hill, with the long flight of stairs leading up to it? Jupiter is the god who dwells there. Was there anyone who did not make offerings of incense on those altars? But it was all to no purpose. How often did husbands, praying for their wives, or fathers for their sons, fall dead at that very altar, their petitions unheard, while part of their offering of incense was found clutched in their hands, still intact. Time and time again, the bulls which had been brought into the temple collapsed and died without waiting for the stroke of the knife, whilst the priest was still reciting his prayers and pouring neat wine between their horns. When I myself was offering sacrifice to Jupiter, on behalf of my country, my 3 sons and myself, my victim suddenly gave vent to dreadful moanings, and before it had even been struck, fell to the ground, staining the knives beneath its throat with only a few drops of blood. Furthermore, the entrails of the sick animals showed none of the signs which used to reveal truth to mortals and convey the warnings of the gods, for the awful sickness penetrated their vital organs. I have seen corpses thrown down before temple doors. Yes, it's very grim, isn't it? Hello, Billy. I have seen corpses thrown down before temple doors, or to make their deaths still more of a reproach to the gods, before the very altars. Some of my people hanged themselves, and by dying escaped the fear of death, anticipating their own accord the fate that was approaching. The bodies of the dead received none of the usual funeral rites, nor were they even carried out of the cities. Its gates could not have found room for all the funerals to pass. The corpses lay on the ground, unburied, or were thrown without further ceremony onto pyres, heaped with bodies. By now, all respect for the dead had vanished. They don't have a guy with a car. Yeah. Where's that car? I was mentioning you earlier. We're reading Metamorphoses. It's like the Kafkaesque one, but it's slightly less Kafkaesque. Though I'd argue it still is quite Kafkaesque, whatever Kafkaesque even means. You feeling Kafkaesque, Ace? And men fought over the funeral fires and were burned in other people's flames. No one was left to mourn, and the ghosts of mothers and young wives, young men and old, wandered about unwept. There was not enough land for graves, not enough trees for the funeral pyres. Interesting, they got ghosts here. I always like when I get mentions of sort of things they had in the past, beliefs and such, you know. Like, there's no mention of angels here, because this is pre-Christian times, but we often think of ghosts as sort of a modern thing either. Like, did they have ghosts in the past? I think they did have ghosts in the past. Actually, there's an interesting story in the Iliad, where after what's his name died. Achilles' friend begins with a P. I can't remember his name now. Persephus, something, and his ghost appears to Achilles in a dream. Is it a ghost or is it a dream? It's not too clear to me. Utterly distraught by a storm of disasters, I cried to heaven, "O Jupiter, if it is true, as men say, that you entered the embrace of Aegina, Asclepius' daughter, and if you are not ashamed, mighty father, to acknowledge me your son, either restore my people, or lay me too to rest in my tomb." Jupiter gave me a sign that he had heard, a lightning flash, followed by a peal of thunder. "I receive your token." Oh, that was him speaking. "I receive your token," I exclaimed. Of course, Jupiter would never say anything. What a fool I was for even assuming anything like that. "I receive your token," I exclaimed, "and pray that those indications of your purpose may augur well for me. I accept your pledge you give me. The pledge that you give me." It so happened that there was an oak tree close by, with spreading branches widely spaced, which was sacred to Jupiter. Oh, yeah, I think Jupiter is. I think the oak tree was sacred to Jupiter. I think I read that once. Grown from the seeds of Dodona's grove, there was a long column of ants, which had been gathering grain, carrying massive burdens in their tiny mouths. As they followed a path along the wrinkled tree trunk, I looked at their numbers admiringly. "Oh, best of fathers," I cried, "grant me so many citizens to fill up my desolate city." The tall oak trembled, and its branches groaned as they moved, though there was no wind to move them. My limbs quivered with panic fear, and my hair stood on end. Nevertheless, I kissed the earth and the trunk of the tree, though I did not confess that I indulged any hope. Yet, in fact, I did hope, and fondly cherished my prayers in my own heart. Night came on, and, weary with anxiety as we were, sleep laid hold on us. And then the oak tree seemed to appear before me, with just the same number of branches, the same number of insects on them. It seemed to tremble as it had done before, and scattered the column of ants, with the grain they had collected, upon the fields below. Suddenly, the creatures began to grow. They became bigger and bigger, raised themselves from the ground, and stood upright. More transformations. Their superfluous feet and their dark colouring disappeared. Their bodies swelled out. Their limbs took on human shape. Whoa! It's anti-Kafkaesque. It's the other way around. Bugs are turning into people. Oh my goodness. I can't even say it's Kafkaesque anymore. It's the opposite of Kafkaesque. This is... What's an antonym of esque? Like unesque? Non-esque? What does esque even mean? And their limbs, too, took on human shape. Sleep left me then. Once I was awake, I discounted what I had seen, and complained that there was no help from heaven. But there was a loud murmur of voices within the palace, and I thought I heard men talking, a sound that had long ceased to be familiar. Gotta get more water. More water. Uh-oh, water. Cascophobic. Well, the word is Kafkaesque, not cascophilic, but it's closer than I think anything else. You know, for anyone who doesn't get the reference, there's a book by Kafka called Metamorphoses, in which a guy transforms into a beetle and his family is horrified by it. I don't really know what it's about. It's kind of a weird book. I'm not sure what would compel someone to write a book. It's probably a political commentary of some kind. Kafka opposite, Kafka opposed. Something like that, but more Greek. More Greek. Or something. While I was imagining that this too was a dream, Telemon came hurrying to my room and burst open the door. "Father," he shouted, "come out, and you will see something beyond all your hopes, beyond belief." I went out, and I saw men such as I had seemed to see in my dream. I recognized their ranks. They approached and hailed me as their king. He's the king of the ants, great. If only Smiling Friends were still on, they could do a bit where they say I can never pronounce that word. Those people are coming to town. I'm afraid the reference is lost to me. I haven't watched Smiling Friends or played it. I don't know if it's a TV show or a game. Then I fulfilled the vows I'd made to Jupiter by giving these new people a share in the city and in the fields which had lost their former cultivators. I called them... They're forcing me to read it. Myrmidons. Or I really don't know. I'm sorry. I've seen this word hundreds of times. Blimey, it's hot. Where's the remote control for my fan? Ah, it's on the other side of the room. It's boiling hot. Toasty. My chair is tangled in the table. I can't reach it. Take my headphones off. I can reach it now. Turn it up a little bit more. Probably ruin the audio quality though. Oh, I know why. It's not facing the right way. My fan's facing away. Oh, what a tangle. What a tangle. I haven't got any fan. Although this is probably going to blow the pages. That'll be a thing. Ay 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 ay. We made it back to our desk. Where was I? Something about the Myrmidons? Giving them a name that did not conceal their origin. I'm guessing Myrmidon means Anne. You have seen their persons. As to their characters, they still retain the traits they had before. A thrifty people, willing to endure hard labour, holding on to what they have and storing their gains away. They will follow you to war, an army all alike in age and valour, just as soon as the east wind, which gave you a prosperous voyage hither. For it was the east wind that had brought the Athenians, veers round to the south. They whiled away the long day with such tales, and spent the last hours of daylight in feasting. The night was given over to sleep. Now the golden sun had risen with its radiant light. The east wind was still blowing, and held the ships in harbour, though they were impatient to return. The sons of Pallas joined their older companion, and then Cephalus and the two young men made their way to the king Aeacus. To the king, full stop. Aeacus was still fast asleep, and the princes Telamon and Peleus were enlisting soldiers for the war. However, Phocus, the third son of Aeacus, received the Athenians at the entrance of the palace, and led them inside, into a handsome inner chamber, where he sat down with them. He noticed that Aeolus's grandson carried in his hand a javelin, which, made from some unknown wood and tipped with gold. Made from some unknown wood and tipped with gold. Hold on now. Hold on now. Who tips a javelin with gold? That's not going to penetrate anything. What are you doing? Tipped with gold. You're going to throw gold at your enemies? What a dumb idea. That's so stupid. Tipped with gold. So, when they'd first exchanged a few words of conversation, the prince said, "I take a keen interest in the forest and in hunting. Yet I have been wondering for some time what wood was used to fashion the javelin you are holding. If it were of ash, surely it would be yellow in colour. If it were cornel, there would be knots in the grain. What tree it comes from I do not know. but I have never set eyes on a more beautiful missile than yours. So, gets the loop. Yep, it's wood. One of the two brothers from Athens answered him. You admire its performance even more than its... What's the next word gonna be? What's it gonna be? Than its looks, he said, for it never fails to reach its mark. No mere chance guides it when it's thrown. He's got an aimbot, and no one has to bring it back, for it returns of its own accord, all blood-stained to its master. Then indeed the young descent of Nereus was full of questions as to why this was so. This is also interesting. The Celtic people, the Irish people, in their mythology, they have a character I think called Lugh, Lugh, who also has a spear which throws, always hits its mark, and returns back to him. And interesting, I guess it was a common fantasy back in the days when people kept threw spears. You throw your expensive spear and you miss. Oh, if only it didn't miss. You throw your spear and it hits. But now I haven't got a spear anymore. I want my spear back. Well, javelin, same thing, really. Stick with a pointy bit on the end. It must have been a common fantasy to wish for a javelin or a spear to always hit its mark and come back on its own. Then, indeed, the young descendant of Nereus was full of questions as why this was so. Where the javelin had come from, and who had given Cephalus so valuable a possession. Cephalus told him what he wanted to know, but said nothing of what the weapon had cost him, for he was ashamed to speak of that. Blimey, we're getting some Ushio Totora lore here. It's the beast spear. Killed his... I can't remember the lore of that. He killed his daughter or something. I turned into a spear. It's the funniest thing ever. Filled with grief at the thought of his lost wife. I think he turned his wife into the spear. Please don't tell me. Are you telling me Ushio Totora was ripping off Greek mythology? Filled with grief at the thought of his lost wife, tears started as he told his tale. This javelin, goddess-born Focus, brings tears to my eyes. Incredible as it sounds, will do so for years to come. If the fates have appointed me so long a life, this weapon destroyed me and my dear wife together. I wish it had never been given to me. Procris was my wife, but you are more likely to have heard of Oryphia, the princess who was swept away from Athens. If you have, Procris was Oryphia's sister, though if you compare the beauty and the character of the two, it was Procris, rather than her sister, who deserved to be carried off. She and I were joined in marriage by her father Erechtheus, and we were united, too, by our own love. Men called me happy, and indeed I was. But the gods wished otherwise, else perhaps I would be happy still. It was in the second month after our marriage. I was spreading nets to capture antlered deer, when, from the summit of flower-decked Hymettus, saffron-robed Aurora dispelled the darkness with her morning light, caught sight of me, snatched me away against my will. I hope I may tell the truth with all respect to the goddess. She was fair to see with her rosy lips. She was the queen of the borderland of night and day. She was nurtured on the droughts of nectar, but it was Procris who I loved. Procris was always on my lips and in my heart. I kept on talking of the ties, of matrimony, of my recent marriage, my new home, the promises so lately made to the bride I had deserted, till the goddess grew annoyed and said, Enough of your complaints, you thankless man. Have your Procris. But as surely as my mind foresees the future, you will wish you had never had her. So she angrily sent me back to my wife. As I was returning, and pondering on what the goddess had said, I began to be afraid lest Procris had not been true to her marriage vows. Her youth and beauty bade me suspect her loyalty, but her character precluded such suspicions. Still, I had been away, and I was returning home from a goddess who had been guilty of just such conduct. Besides, we lovers are always afraid, I decided to look for my own torment and to test her virtue by offering her gifts. Aurora encountered this fear of mine and altered my appearance. I seemed to feel myself changing. And then I entered Athens, Pallas' city, so disguised that none could recognize me, and made my way to my own home. I found an exemplary household, which gave every evidence of living a blameless life. Its only distress, the disappearance of its master. By 1,000 contrivances, I managed to gain an audience with Procrus. When I saw her, I stood quite overcome and almost abandoned my schemes for testing her loyalty. I could scarcely restrain myself from telling the truth and kissing her, as I should have done. She was sad, grieving for the loss of the husband who had been snatched from her. But none could have been lovelier than she was, even in her sadness. Imagine, Focus, how beautiful she was, when grief itself became her so well. Why should I tell you how often her purity rejected my advances? How often she said, I am keeping myself for one alone. Wherever he is, I reserve the joys that I can give for him only. Who, in his sound senses, would not have found that sufficient proof of loyalty? But I was not content. I fought on, to wound myself by increasing the gifts I offered. By promising a fortune for a night in her company, I forced her at length to hesitate. Then, having gained my end at the cost of my own happiness, I cried out, You wicked woman! The man you see here was only pretending when he tried to seduce you. It was your own true husband all the time. Now you have been caught, and I myself have convicted you of unfaithfulness. She said nothing. What the hell, man? What are you doing? Come on, man. Get it together. She said nothing, overwhelmed as she was by silent shame. She fled from the home where she had been tricked, from her wicked husband. She loathed all men because of what I had done, and roamed the mountains, devoting herself to the pursuits of the huntress Diana, that's Artemis. Then, when she had left me, my love for her blazed up more fiercely than ever. Searing me to the very marrow, I begged her to forgive, confessed that I had been in the wrong, and that I myself might have fallen into the same fault, had I been offered such gifts. When I had made this confession, and she had sufficiently avenged her outraged modesty, she was restored to me, and we spent blissful years together, living in perfect harmony. That's a messed up marriage. Are we at the end of the book? No? Whoopsie, come on. Stiff page, that is a stiff page. When does we're near the end of the book. We'll get to the end of the book. Or, well, it's called a book, but really it's just like a big chapter. Wow, it's hot. I better drink more water. Now, when she returned, as if the gift of herself were of little account, she also made a present of a dog, which she had received from the goddess she served. As she gave the animal to Procrus, Diana had said, He will run faster than any other dog. At the same time, my wife gave me a javelin as well, which, as you see, I am still carrying. You would like to know what became of the other gift. Listen, and you will be astonished at the strange and wonderful thing that happened. Is this the Oedipus? Are we gonna hear about Oedipus? Oedipus, son of Laius, had solved the riddles that had baffled all before him, and the dark prophetess, the Sphinx, had flung herself from the cliff and now lay dead, her puzzles forgotten. Yeah, she's the one who does the three-legged man, old man, he's three legs because of walking stick. That riddle. Not a very good riddle, to be honest. Well, I suppose, if you don't know the answer, I suppose it's a good riddle. I don't know. But Righteous Themis did not allow even this. It seemed to me to go unavenged, so a second plague was immediately loosed on the Aeonian Thebes, in the shape of a wild beast which struck terror into the hearts of many of the country folk, making them afraid for themselves and for their cattle. Then all the young men of the neighbourhood gathered together. We laid our snares in a wide circle, encompassing the fields, but the animal charged away with all speed and leapt easily across the nets, clearing the topmost cords of the traps we had set. A pack of hounds was released, 100 strong, but the beast, as swift as any bird, escaped from their pursuit and made sport of them all. With one consent, the huntsman shouted to me for Laelaps. That was the name of the dog I had been given. He had long been struggling to free his neck from its chain, straining at the end of the leash that held him back. Scarcely was he well set free that we lost all knowledge of where he was. The warm dusk showed the marks of his paws, but he himself had vanished, moving with the speed of a bullet shot from a whirling sling, as fast as a thrown spear, or a light arrow sped from a Cretan bow. If it's not really obvious, they did not have guns in ancient Greece. It's always amusing to hear the word bullet used. There was a hill, whose summit gave a view of the surrounding fields. I climbed up there and watched the spectacle of this strange race, in which the wild beast seemed at one moment to be caught by the dog, and at the next to snatch itself out of its very mouth. The creature was cunning, and did not run straight ahead, but eluded the jaws of its pursuer by circling round, preventing its enemy from launching his attack. The dog pressed on the heels of his quarry, following closely, neither gaining nor losing ground. He seemed to have his victim, but never quite had it, and snapped uselessly at the air. I turned to my javelin for aid. While I was balancing it in my hand, trying to fit my fingers into the thongs, that's interesting. Were the javelins not just a plain stick, but instead had some kind of grip for the hand? Interesting. I took my eyes off the chase. When I looked back again at the same spot, to my amazement, I saw two marble statues on the plain below, such that you would think one was fleeing, and the other was in the act of seizing its prey. Assuredly, if there was some god watching them, he did not want either to be defeated in that chase. When he had reached this point in his story, Cephalus fell silent, but Phocus questioned him. Now about that javelin itself, he said, what fault have you to find with it? Then Cephalus told the story of his weapon's crime, as follows. My happiness, Phocus, was the origin of my sorrow, but I must tell you of it first. How gladly I remember that blissful time when in the first years of my marriage I was happy with my wife, and rightly so, and she was happy with her husband. We were both equally in love, and cared equally for each other, and she would not have exchanged my love for marriage with Jupiter himself. Nor could any other woman interest me. No, not if Venus herself had come to me. The same passionate love burned in both our breasts. When the first rays of the sun struck the hilltops, I used to go hunting in the woods, as young men do. I took no servants or horses, no keen-scented hounds or knotted nets. My javelin was all I needed. But when my arm grew tired with killing wild creatures, I used to seek cool shade in the zephyr that blew from the chill depths of the valleys. I looked for this gentle zephyr in the midday heat, and used to wait for it to refresh me after my exertions. I remember I used to call, Come, Zephyr, come to my breast, a most welcome visitor, and soothe me. Be pleased to relieve me, as you most surely do, the burning heat that scorches me. Zephyr means wind, by the way. I think it's a specific wind in this case, but I think it is also a generic word for wind. Perhaps I may have added other endearments, for so my fate led me on. I used to say, You are my dear delight. You refresh and restore me. You make me love the woods and lonely places, and my lips are ever seeking your breath. Someone overheard these words and mistook their meaning. He thought that Zephyr to whom I so often called, was the name of a nymph, and imagined that I was in love with her. Hastily this rash informer hurried to Procrus with the tale of my supposed unfaithfulness, and whispered to her what he had heard. Love makes us ready to believe. Procrus was so overcome by her sudden distress that she fainted, so they told me. After a long time, she came to herself, and, bemoaning her wretchedness and the cruelty of her fate, lamented her disloyalty. Distraught by those groundless accusations, she feared something which had no real existence, a mere name without a body, and mourned unhappily as if over a real rival. Still, even in her misery, she often doubted the story, and hoped that she was mistaken, declaring that she did not believe it, and would not condemn her husband unless she saw his guilt with her own eyes. Good, good, good. Don't listen to rumours. The next day, the light of dawn had put her darkness to flight. When I left home and went to the woods, after I had made my kill, I lay down on the grass and said, "Come, Zephyr, soothe my weariness." And suddenly, as I spoke, I seemed to hear a sound of moaning, but I continued, "Come, best beloved." Look, who speaks of wind like this? A leaf made a slight rustle as it fell, and I, thinking it was some wild creature, hurled my javelin. Greeks, please. Hurled my javelin. It was Procrus. Clutching the wound in her breast, she cried out, "Ah, woe is me!" I'm sorry, the wording is terrible. "Ah, woe is me!" I recognized the voice of my faithful wife, and raced madly to the spot from which it came. There I found her, only half conscious, her garments smeared and stained with blood. As a crowning touch of misery, she was dragging from her wounded breast the missile which she herself had given me. Gently, I lifted my arms that formed dearer to me than my own. Tearing the dress from her breast, I bound up her cruel wounds and tried to staunch the blood. Well, they know about tourniquets in ancient Greece. That's fascinating. To staunch the blood, begging her not to leave me, not to make me guilty of her death. Though she was fainting, on the point of death, she forced herself to utter a few words. "By the marriage we two have shared, by the gods above and those who watch over me, by that love that has brought about my death and yet still lives, even now, when I am dying, I beg you, if ever I deserved well of you, do not let Zephyr take my place as your wife." It's the wind. Jesus Christ. Only when she spoke did I at last realize her mistake, and then I told her the truth. But what use was there in telling? Her senses were slipping away. The little strength she had ebbed with her blood. As long as she could look at anything, she looked at me and breathed, her last breath on my lips. But her expression was happier, and she seemed to die content. The hero was in tears as he told his story, and those who heard him were weeping too. But now Aeacus and his other two sons appeared, leading the soldiers they had newly enlisted, and Cephalus took command of those strongly armed forces. Jesus Christ. What drama? What's the next bit about? Let's see. Scylla. That's the guy, not the guy, that's the monster in the ocean, right? And then we got the Cretan Labyrinth. Oh, there's Daedalus and Icarus, I suppose. The death of Icarus. The Caledonian Boar Hunts. I thought that was, that's by Hercules, right? Yes, this is definitely Hercules. Althea's Revenge. I don't know what that is. The Death of Malaga. Heard of that, I think. Achilles and the Nymphs. I think I've heard of that. Baucis and Philemon. I think I've heard of that. I think, aren't they centaurs? The Sacrilege of, long name. Hunger Torments, long name. Hercules defeats Achilles. The Shirt of Nessus. Oh, that's the shirt, the poison shirt, which sets that is covered in ancient Greek napalm that kills Hercules. The death of Hercules. Hercules recalls his birth. The transformation of Dryope, Bibulus and Clownus. Hold on. I'm bending the pages a little too much here. I need to do this properly. The story of Iphis. I think Iphis is a sheep. Iphis is despair. Takes a long time to get to the Iliad. Orpheus is... Okay, we've got Orpheus alive. The sing... Oh, I've seen, I saw something about Pygmalion. No, there's an architectural element called a Pygmalion and Galatea. Venus and Adonis. That happens here? That's like a modern history, but that's such an ancient thing. I thought that was much older. Oh, Orpheus. Rip Orpheus. Oh, then you get King Midas here, the Golden Touch. Ah, we've arrived. So this is where Troy appears. The treachery of Troy. Transformation of Daedalon. We've got Daedalon. He's like the founder of the Greeks or something. Like they're like the Dorians or something. I don't know. Morpheus. House of Rumor. Achilles and Sinus. It's like that guy from Saint Seiya. Story of Canis. Nestor. Okay, we're definitely getting to the Trojan War. Hang on a minute. Ajax's claims over... Okay, I guess we've just skipped past the Iliad then. Achilles is already dead. Ulysses, otherwise known as Odysseus. And then Aeneas. We've reached Aeneas, and now we're into the Aeneid territory. We're into Roman propaganda territory. Aeneas becomes a god. And then Romulus, the founder of Rome. Pythagoras. I didn't expect Pythagoras to be in here. That's unexpected. That's like not something you expect in a book like this. It goes on for a long time. But Numa, so we've got the King Numa. Miracles of early Rome. I didn't know Asclepius came to Rome. The murder of Caesar. The destiny of Augustus. So at this point, Augustus is alive at this point. He's the emperor right now in this book, at the writing of this book. He's the destiny of Augustus. Fascinating stuff. Don't know if we'll read all that on stream. I just thought it's a book I've got by my bedside that I just sort of read whenever. Only an hour and a half. Quite a short stream. But I can't think of what more to do. Reading is always tough. Reading is a tough thing to do. But thanks for watching. We'll end it there. We'll end it there. Fun time had by all. Don't know what I'll stream next time. Maybe I'll do more art. Maybe I'll do something else. Sort of exploring all the various things that I do. Yeah, it was kind of fun. It was a bit dreary in the beginning with the story about the plague, but then the other story about the spear and the stuff, that was quite fun. It was very silly, but very classic sort of Greek tragedy there. Where it's a misunderstanding, but the the audience knows it's a. Now you say book. Now here's the thing that I suspect. Here's the thing that I suspect. Imagine if you were to a book. A book is really like condensed. You've got page, 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 page. But imagine a scroll. Imagine you took all those pages and you rolled them up as a scroll. How thick would that scroll be for like an average like a 50-page book? That'd probably be kind of a big scroll. That's like, think of a toilet roll. You know, a toilet roll might have like 50 sheets in it. It's kind of a big toilet roll, right? And the paper is quite thick. It's this is sort of papyrus stuff, so it's a bit thick paper. That's quite a big scroll, even though it's only like 50 pages. So you say that's the whole book right there. That's the whole book. Plus, they had very terrible grammar back in the day. That is to say, they didn't have grammar at all, and they wrote in block capitals and with no spaces. So it was just capital letters, block, 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 block. Imagine trying to read 50 pages of that. Must be a nightmare. I suppose you call that a book. You call it a book. I don't know. Had to be written by hand as well, so it was writing a 300-page book. That's an undertaking. Writing a 50-page book, that's still an undertaking. I don't know the times. I should draw some scrolls for myself. That'd be a good idea. Thanks for watching. I should get an outro. I should make like an outro thing. That'd be a good idea.